welcome to Spirit Switchboard. I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shellhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. If you are new to joining Spirit Switchboard, we are part of the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. You can find out more about the hosts that we have and the shows that we have with our network at uparantalkradio.com. You can access thousands of archive shows, find out more about the hosts. The news on the street, folks, is that we are getting a new website, an updated website, potentially a merch store. There's all kinds of things, potentially a chat. There are things happening. So please follow along. I'd love for you to be part of the ride. So I know that a few weeks ago I was up I'm here at the Allenford House. So it might be a little glitchy, but we're just going to see how it plays out. So if it does, just be patient, and I appreciate that patience. Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for chiming in from Colorado. Colorado showing up in the house. Thank you so very much. Denise Smith, Carrie Fast, thank you so much. Kara Jade, the real Stephanie Malo, hello. It was great having you on the show. Stephanie is the author of Stopping to Smell the Flowers. So she has been on Spirit Switchboard a few times, and you can access that replay as well too. It's great to see you here. Just want to pull this up. I love talking about monsters, so I was very excited to get this book and be able to read it in preparing for the show. So, Monsters, Myths, Legends, and Real Encounters with Richard Estep. Do you guys in the chat, as a kid, what was your first monsters? Was it books? Was it movies? Was it in your dreams? What ones did you gravitate to? Did you hang on to the same ones that you had as a kid as you've grown into an adult? We're very pulled to monsters, right? And it's such a big part of even our pop culture. So I'm curious, folks, what kind of monsters are you drawn to? And the ones that I was drawn to as a kid are also part of the book, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to talk about those tonight as well. Loch Ness Monster. See, me too, Steph. Me too. That was one of the very first ones as a kid. Hi, Patty. Thank you so much for being here. So our guest tonight, Richard Estep, has authored 30 books, many in the field of paranormal nonfiction, including Visible Inks, Dark Spirits. And tonight's the book that we are going to be discussing, Monsters, Myths, Legends, and Real Encounters. Also, Demons and Devils, Ghostly Encounters, Terrifying True Hauntings. Oh my gosh, I think we all know Richard. The Double Lives of Notorious Murderers. Estep is the regular columnist for Haunted Magazine and has also written for the Journal of Emergency Medical Services. He appears on TV shows, Haunted Case Files, Haunted Hospitals, Paranormal 911. Richard now makes his, folks, so we know, British by birth, right? Makes his home in Denver, Colorado, where he serves as a paramedic and lives with his wife in a menagerie of adopted animals, which we discussed prior. We may have the dogs from here, dogs from Richard's. We may have extra folks showing up during the podcast tonight, which I think we're all okay with. Thanks for being here, Richard.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Oh my gosh, Heidi. So Heidi is in Colorado. So she's saying Scooby-Doo was her first initiation into monsters. And I think that is for a lot of us. I even bought Scooby-Doo when my granddaughter was born so that she would have like the mystery bus and all of the characters. So when she got older, she would have the these Scooby-Doo characters.
Scooby-Doo told us that the real monsters were usually people hiding behind a mask.
True stuff, though. True stuff. Hi, Jenny. Thank you so much for being here. What about you? As a kid, were you drawn to monsters as a child?
Me personally? You mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I grew up on monster movies, Ray Harryhausen's stop motion stuff. So, movies like Valley of Gwangi and things like that. But I also loved like the mythological monsters. Ray Harryhausen again gave us Clash of the Titans, the Kraken, Medusa, those Greek mythological monsters, but also the old Hammer horror monsters and the Universal monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, all that kind of stuff. Like when you're a kid, those just get into your blood, no pun intended. And I think there's a reason that they keep perennially remaking those movies. You have yet another Mummy remake coming and a Dracula remake. I think they kind of grow with us, and our fascination is always going to be there with them.
From comic books to the TV shows to just pop culture or movies, all of it, where we have been drawn to them as a kid. I think it's the mystery of it too, right? And the thrill that it gives us, that escape. And then when you become an investigator and you start having real experiences as well too, it shapes what you believe what is real and what isn't, what we thought was real and what the potential is.
You never know when you're going to run into a monster.
This is true. Do you know what? I've never had one.
Don't.
Never.
They're terrible for you. I'd say that that's me libeling them, but I probably keep them in business. So, yeah.
That's funny. I'm scared of them.
Good.
Scared of
Stay
them.
away. They're awful for you. But most paramedics live on caffeine, so that's kind of the case with me.
I wanted to put this up. So Heidi is saying good day to you.
Hey, Heidi, fellow Longmonter.
Mm-hmm. Heidi or Amanda, that's pretty interesting too. I was convinced that something lived under my bed, something with long fingers and claws. I would run and dive under my bed to get in and stand up on my bed and jump as far as I could get out. I think we all did that.
James, I love that logic because then you're safe, right? It's still under the bed. It's still only 2 feet away from you. But if you make it into the bed, you're safe.
Yeah. Well, it's what we tell ourselves in order to believe it, right?
Like bed is home base.
Yeah. Bed is home base. James, the Wiz is chiming in from Washington. Thanks so much, James, for being here. Kiara is saying aliens. And a lot of it is our cultural background too, right? Like the stories that we get told and the things. And we had a lot of that as well too growing up. From German to Scottish and Irish, right? And with the cultural backgrounds, and those are first monsters that we hear as well.
Yeah, all cultures have their monster stories, don't they? And some of them seem to be universal, but they take slightly different forms depending on which culture you're in.
Well, and ideally, it's to scare you to keep you safe. Some of them, right? Stay out of the forest at night. Don't go out at nighttime, or
morality tales. Pretty much all of the Grimm's fairy tales were morality tales. But yeah, they have a purpose. You're right. They serve one purpose or another.
Yeah. Having investigated the paranormal for so long, what drew you to writing a book about the monsters?
I'd written quite a few books about ghosts and haunted locations, and I was doing something different. So I wrote a book that came out last year called Mothman, co-authored with Tobias Wayland, the Mothman researcher, and that had fascinated me. So I wanted to do something more along those lines. And so Visible Ink Press asked me if I'd be interested in looking at some of the monsters that are out there. And of course, the big question is not what you put in, but what you leave out. It's such a broad field. You could write 10 books on this subject and not run out of material. So I'd always wanted to do that. I've always been a monster person. And so I just never really written about it and jumped at the opportunity to do so.
And there's just so many. Like there's the ones that we do know, like Jersey Devil, Sasquatch, Mothman. Like there's ones that are very more well known, and then there's the lesser known ones. So how did you pick and choose? How did you decide or discern which ones that you were drawn to, and which ones did you
It
edit
was
out? Were the ones that you researched that were edited out?
it was pure indulgence on my part. I mean, to begin with, as your tent poles, you have to have. There's an expectation if you're going to write a book about monsters that you'll cover some of the bigger ones, and not just in size, but I mean, Bigfoot. Is an obvious one. Mothman, I think, has become so ubiquitous now that you kind of have to talk about that. Vampires, werewolves, that was almost non-negotiable. Those are foundational monsters. But then there are some more obscure ones, like the Fresno night crawlers, or the Shedapay from India, that I think are not that well known. And I wanted to go down those rabbit holes as well. So I tried to balance it out, meeting the expectations of most readers with, here's something new that you may not be familiar with.
Yeah, I had my sister. My sister is one of the funniest people I know. I love my sister so very much. So she's been a guest a few times on the show. I have dragged her out on paranormal investigations when she's not one. She just agrees to everything that I ask her to do, which gets me in trouble sometimes with my mom. But I had her on a show, and so we did a segment about if we were going to pick a cryptid or a monster to live in our backyard, which one were we going to choose? And so we found cryptids that I had never even heard of. When you start down that rabbit hole, there's just so many, and it's fabulous that you were able to indulge into those places when you were writing the book that that drew your interest and I think you did a great job. There's some in here I had never even heard of.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. I love when I'm learning something new.
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, if the writer does their job right, there should be a balance of the familiar and the new, and hopefully it's a springboard to go deeper down some of the rabbit holes that fascinate you.
Well, do you find once you've written, whether it's this book or like even with Mothman, that more and more people come out with a story? I hear it all the time. Working, I've been a medium my whole life, and so for 20 years as a career. So when you meet people, they'll say that they don't necessarily believe in that, but then they've got a ghost story they want to tell you in the corner. So do you have that experience when after the book comes out, even more people coming out saying, hey, I had this weird thing happen when I was out in the forest on the hike?
I mean, I think also you become more aware of those stories and how they circulate. The Monsters book springboarded me into one of the projects I'm working on now, which is a Bigfoot book. And of course, there is a Bigfoot section in the book, which kind of set me on that road. But we have the big Ohio Bigfoot flap that's going on right now that's taking over the news.
Yes.
This mass Bigfoot sighting.
That was where I wanted to segue into. Actually, I wrote some of those questions down, and there is the movie that people are talking about, whether the Patterson Gimlin was a hoax, right?
Which that's been an ongoing debate now for decades, and I think it's interesting. We'll never know for sure, but it is fun to debate. The Patterson Gimlin film is you can make a strong case for it being a fake. You can make a strong case for it being genuine too. It kind of reminds me of when I was writing about the Lizzie Borden axe murder. One of the smartest things that I saw written about it was a commentator that said, it's hard to see how anybody but Lizzie Borden could have committed the murders. And then his next sentence was, it's hard to see how Lizzie Borden could have committed the murders and got away with it. In other words, she's both the prime suspect and the only suspect, and you can make a strong case either way. You can play devil's advocate and either side of the argument. And I think the same is true with the Patterson Gimlin film.
Wow. I believe it's the son of one of the makers, right, that has come forward, but That being said, it's been almost 60 years and no one has been able to recreate it.
I
Right?
think that, yeah, nobody has recreated it to quite that degree.
Yeah.
And I think it remains fairly impressive. You also have to look at agendas. There are always agendas at work in any field, and cryptozoology is no exception. So as someone that investigates claims of, be it the paranormal, be it monsters, whatever it may be, I always look at who benefits from a story being true. So, in other words, the Patterson Gimlin film, there was a financial motive for releasing that. It did make money in various ways. And it seems like there is also a motivation now for this documentary that's coming out too. So,
Mhm.
um, I, I'm choosing my words carefully, but I'm always very skeptical whenever something like this comes up of what the motives are behind it.
Well, and um, those who want to believe aren't going to be convinced otherwise, right? It's just, if you believe you believe. It doesn't matter if it is proven as a hoax. There are still going to be those who stay firm in their belief that
Yeah. And if it is a hoax, it does not mean there's no such thing as Bigfoot. I mean,
that's right.
it's important to remember that too. If that film is successfully debunked, which again, I don't think it can be successfully debunked or be entered
Yeah,
into evidence, we'll never know. But it does not mean that Bigfoot isn't still out there. If you remove one piece of evidence, it doesn't mean you remove the entirety of the data set.
that's right. Do you believe that Bigfoot uses infrasound?
I'm still researching that. I just returned actually from a squatching expedition to Arizona on Sunday. So I'm looking at theories like that. I'm looking at the idea of cloaking. I'm looking at the more psychic slash paranormal aspects of the phenomenon rather than the more physical aspects of it. So I'm reserving judgment until my research progresses a little further down the road on that.
Okay, so then I'm going to hit you up with that question later.
Sure.
I will
By all
hit you.
means, In Search of Bigfoot is due to come out, I believe, next year, so we shall see.
Okay. I know Lily Nova, she just came out with a new video, and she, feels that she is channeling and connecting in with them. And she just recently made a video about connecting and them feeling, or Sasquatch saying that we do have that DNA. And that was also, or part of that DNA. And through the mother's side, and Dr. Melba Ketchum had that research as well too. Is that something that you've looked into or will be looking into? That
We'll see. Like
possibility of humans being.
I'm fortunate that I live in near Bailey, Colorado, which many people believe is the state's Bigfoot hotspot, and there are a number of mediums that think that there is a portal in the woods outside Bailey. So I'm looking at the connection between portals and Bigfoot, but also um, we have to bear in mind that there is a connection, or an apparent connection, between high strangeness in the form of poltergeist activity and UFOs, UAPs,
Yeah.
and things of that nature too with the Bigfoot phenomenon. These aren't the siloed, separate aspects of the paranormal that we used to think they were. So I'm trying to look at this from all facets.
I love that. And as we should, like, sit on the fence and look at it from all the different perspectives, right?
Yeah, I think that for many years, we treated UFOs, uh, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, other cryptids, and ghosts and hauntings as if they were entirely separate subjects, like they were
Mm-hmm.
rigidly different, and that there were concrete barriers between them. And it's not the case. It's simply laughable. I mean, you mentioned, we were talking earlier, and we talked about Belgrove Plantation in Virginia.
Yeah.
Um, Belgrove, I happen to know, having interviewed the lady that runs the place, has both light anomalies that may or may not be UFO related, has numerous Bigfoot sightings there, including what she thinks are a family of Bigfoots that throw stones at the house to get their attention, and is notoriously haunted as well. So I think there are these kind of window areas in the world where we see these phenomena converge.
I've always believed you can't have one without the other. They all play a part somehow, or are all connected. I know a friend of mine, so Richie, he's got his YouTube channel and he does boots on the ground. So it's banter with Richie B. And on his property, he's been researching them, and it's amazing the things that they have been happening, the things that have been happening there. And I had said to him, well, you've got Bigfoot, so get ready. You know, the other stuff is going to happen too. And then it did. So you have the UAPs and the red lights and the forest and everything else. It just goes hand in hand. And I think for me, you know, having this ability, I said, I can't expect people to believe that this is my truth, and then I want to shut down somebody else's experience. I am open to whatever the experience is, and yeah, go from there, right? But definitely portals for sure too. I think so as well.
It's been an interesting subject to research, and it's still ongoing.
So has it opened, did you have a belief prior to research and discover something that changed your belief system so far?
No, because I try and keep an open mind, and it's challenging sometimes, because some of the claims are so difficult to explain or to accept. And so you always have to place each monster story in its own cultural context. The Flatwoods monster is an interesting one as well. For example, it reads like it's a science fiction story. And you look at what was big in American movie theaters at the time that movie came out, and it was all of these, it came from outer space kind of movies. And lo and behold, a bunch of people have an encounter with something that seems like an alien monster that came from outer space, the other one that springs to mind is the earliest Loch Ness monster sightings. When they were making the rounds and starting to get popular, King Kong was conquering movie theaters, so monster stories are there on the big screen, and people were starting to thrill to those in movie theaters. So I think there is a connection between the mass consciousness, what we're seeing, what we're embracing as part of popular culture, and the way we view our monster sightings.
So that was a question that I had for you too, about that collective consciousness. If we believe that we can create from our thoughts as well too, or some of the monsters, are we creating them because collectively we're putting that thought intention out?
I mean, it's certainly possible. Why not? Loch Ness is
Yeah.
a puzzling one because, so many people think it's a plesiosaur, and Loch Ness has never at any point been connected to the ocean. So there is just no way it could be an oceanic dinosaur, even though it looks like one has been described. Like, how did it get there? It's completely landlocked. So you have to kind of look at other explanations. People are certainly seeing something, and they're describing something that's very similar. There's a commonality to the reports that we cannot and should not ignore. But then we enter into these strange waters, if you'll pardon the pun, of how does something like that get to Loch Ness? I mean, physically, how does it? And there's no good explanation for it.
Unless there's a whole world in the center of the earth with the doorways that open, who knows? Somebody
Yeah, I mean,
had suggested asking you about the Land of Lakes too, right?
the Land of Lakes?
With the Bigfoots. Yeah. Yeah.
I think
With the
that
Bigfoots and
the
werewolves.
phenomenon is far wider and stranger than most of us grew up thinking, and I think it interconnects in many ways that remain unseen to us. And I suspect with some of these monsters, cryptids, call them what you will, we may be looking at just different facets of the same phenomenon. And so I think authors are partly to blame for this, but you write a book and you might have a chapter on lake monsters, and another on sea monsters, and another on flying creatures, another on, humanoid, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yowie, call them what you will, depending on where you are in the world. And so we like to categorize. Humans love to put things into categories. It helps us understand things, but sometimes it also helps us over complicate matters or oversimplify as well. So what if, whether it swims, whether it crawls, whether it soars, what if they are all just different facets of the same very strange phenomenon that that we haven't quite been able to pin down yet? Thank you, Heidi. That's a lovely thought.
RichardEstep.net, folks. That's where you can check out. Heidi was sharing that she has several of Richard's books and that she highly recommends.
Yeah, thanks, Heidi.
James is on a property where
come to Washington State. Yeah, you seem to be in a very Bigfoot centric part of the country, James, and I think that's really cool. I may well get out there at some point. Certainly, it has a greater per capita number of Bigfoot sightings than many other states.
Agreed. Heidi's sharing, I think, of the individual's perception too when thinking of cryptids.
It's the observer effect, isn't it? I mean, you have to wonder why some people see these things and others don't. Is there a psychic component to it? Is it the fact that so many people are just so married to their phones these days that they're not paying attention, that they're not truly watching the skies, or that they're walking through the woods with earphones in and not being fully aware. So I do wonder how much of a role the observer plays in each cryptid sighting or encounter.
I would agree, and sometimes I don't believe that everyone's connected to their bodies as well either, right? So your intuition will connect you through your body, or your body's the first response to something, and if you're disconnected from how your body is responding to your environment around you, I think that plays a big part of things as well.
It interested me when I was researching the Mothman sightings that one of the fairly common side effects or symptoms was this crippling sense of fear, almost paralyzing fear. Now, as far as I'm aware, that Mothman hasn't harmed anybody, but it's as if it whatever it is so alien, so different to us that it evokes this primal fear. But what fascinated me was, it's entirely understandable if you see something that looks like Mothman is described, this big, tall humanoid with wings and glowing red eyes. Of course, that's going to make you afraid. But a number of the witnesses experienced that fear before they saw the creature, before they set eyes on it. So, a skeptic would say, well, assuming they're seeing anything at all, the power of suggestion is probably, they looked at this horrific thing. But a number of them were just suddenly afraid for no obvious reason at first. And it was only afterwards that they put eyes on Mothman. So I see Contessa Martin in the chat is saying, has Mothman appeared only in the US? No, absolutely not. Mothman is big in South America, New Mexico. And I should say as well, Mothman is the term we've kind of settled on, but I think winged humanoids is a better phrase. It's just we're so used to the term Mothman, which dates entirely back to a single newspaper report from the late 1960s, by the way. Mothman got its name, in fact, because one of the biggest shows on TV at that time was Batman with Adam West and Burt Ward. And you literally had a newspaper reporter borrow that and say, here's Mothman. Most people in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, where the initial Mothman flap took place, they didn't refer to it as Mothman until the newspaper reports came out. They called it the Big Black Bird. It was thought of as more of a huge, like Cessna-sized bird than it was a human at first. And then it kind of donned the mantle of Mothman and remains that to this day.
Interesting.
Yeah. But Mothman was reported at the Fukushima power plant in Japan prior to the meltdown. And there are anecdotal stories of the blackbird of Chernobyl, which some researchers have also tried to tie into the Mothman phenomenon.
So that crippling fear, if if we present it as um, a, a, a being, a real being, could it emit that high EMF? Could that high EMF happen before it physically is in the space? Because doesn't high EMF do the same thing? Like it creates, um,
Yeah, fear cage, essentially. Yes.
yeah,
So the human nervous system is very responsive to very high levels of EMF. So that is a potential explanation. And it may just be that the body is reacting physiologically, not consciously, but at a physiologic level, to something that is just so different, so alien, so other, um, that when we investigate haunted houses, I know a number of investigators that say the human body is the best ghost detector. Never mind a
mhm.
$300 piece of equipment gadget that you can buy. Human senses will react to the paranormal. Dogs, cats, pets, we've all seen them react to things that don't appear to be there. So I wonder if what's happening with that sense of fear is, there's just some energy field, whether it's EMF or something else, that the nervous system reacts to reflexively, with no input from the eyes or anything else.
I just, I understand, and I'm hearing what you're saying. I think that for most people, that um, that would be the case. Do you
Mm.
find when we're in this all the time, there's very little like I don't get scared like that, or I don't get that deep sense um, of fear the same way because I'm just so immersed in it through work and um, doing those sorts of investigations, like when we're in it all the time. So I don't know. I guess it's yeah. It's just saying the heebie-jeebie feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit beyond that. It is a crippling, debilitating, like roots you to the spot, can't move a muscle, almost paralyzing fear.
Paralyzing fear.
So, I mean, the key thing with overcoming fear is that fear can be consciously overcome with training and with expertise and experience to a degree. Anybody that has ever been in combat, anybody that has ever been in a life-threatening situation and had to perform as part of their job will tell you that it can be trained. But what the Mothman experiences seem to be encountering is something different, something that you can't simply push through and you can't simply override. Beyond the heebie-jeebies, it almost seems to be as if there is a physical effect that is inflicted upon them as part of these encounters. And there are no records I could find, no interview witnesses I interviewed that actually came to harm because of this. That's important to note. So as
Mhm.
terrified as they were all okay at the end of it, but it often took them hours to subside, for that feeling to subside.
Hmm. Oh, Sherry Madigan, thank you so much for being here.
Hello
Love
and
to you
welcome.
too. One of the things, if we're talking about Mothman, so it's the same with the Jersey Devil. One of the questions I
Mhm.
have for you is that what does that legend? Because even for both of them, what does that legend reveal? Um, uh, to like they have built their identity around that legend, right? Like it is. So, could you speak to that? A
To
little
to
bit.
this to
Well, just
the
how they build those communities, build their identity through those fear
totally.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some places that they not only are okay with their local monster, but they embrace it. I mean, this happens on a state level. So Wisconsin has an official state monster, the Hodag, which I think is very, very cool. And if you go to Wisconsin, you see sports teams and schools named the Hodag, named after it. Um, Towns like Van Meter, Iowa. I don't know if you've heard of the Van Meter visitor or
Yeah.
the Van Meter monster, but this is a creature that came to town in 1903, I believe it was, and described as kind of like a pterodactyl, a cross between a humanoid and a pterodactyl that shot this beam of energy like a laser beam out of a horn in its forehead. And this is the American Midwest in 1903. So what was the reaction? The entire town shot this thing. And it was either bulletproof or they were incredibly bad shots because the visitor terrorized the town night after night after night until finally the people of Van Meter ended up boarding it up in a mine. And supposedly it remains there to this day. I've been to Van Meter, and every year they have a Van Meter Visitor Festival based entirely around this monster. It's what their town is known for. It's what put Van Meter on the map and keeps it there. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, without Mothman, I hate to say this, and with the greatest of respect to the town and its people, but nobody would go there if it weren't for Mothman. Nobody just stops in Point Pleasant, West Virginia because they go because of the Mothman stories, the big statue of Mothman that is in the town square. They go to walk in the footsteps of this legendary cryptid or monster, and it's become such a piece of their identity, as you said, Carolyn, sorry, that without it, what are they? And so there are many places I think that do this. Loch Ness and that whole region in Scotland, same deal.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all, but many.
No.
Go ahead.
No, I don't feel it's a bad thing. Bad thing either, but it certainly gets created, and then not even created necessarily by the people within the town, but the people that flock to it.
Yep, and there's this kind of collective belief, this collective focus, this collective infusion of energy when you go to places like that.
Yeah. Oh, Jen Schneider, I don't know if you want to do that road trip, but we can try. There's all kinds of road trips that we can take to different places like that. James is asking, what are your thoughts on skinwalkers?
Hey, James. When I was writing another book, one of my haunted healthcare books, I interviewed a colleague of mine who she wanted an assumed identity. So she has a nom de plume to protect her real identity, but she's a Native American and had worked as a paramedic on various wildfire assignments across the US. And she had been assigned to work with a Native American firefighting crew who were excellent at what they did and good people. And one of them was known as Wolf Boy. And according to them, Wolf Boy was a skinwalker, that he was capable of changing his shape and changing into a wolf. And one night in fire camp, when everyone had gone to bed, she heard the sound of something outside her tent and took a look outside, and the biggest wolf imaginable was right outside Wolf Boy's tent. And the next morning, she had an exchange with him where it seemed pretty clear that was what he had done that night. The common perception of skinwalkers is that they are evil. The idea being that these are shamans or medicine men that have committed acts of evil in exchange for the power. It's like the classic deal with the devil that you hear in some vampire stories, selling your soul in exchange for power. So that is a part of Native American culture, and I don't have firsthand experience with that. And I definitely think that's a subject that Native American authors and researchers, I would love to see them explore more. I wouldn't want to appropriate their culture. But certainly the wildland crew and the paramedic that I interviewed was deadly serious that this man had the ability to turn into a wolf and back at night.
Interesting. I feel I'll remember like in 20 minutes from now what the fellow's name is, but he's from the Navajo Nation, and on his YouTube channel he did a fabulous video showing different images, and he said what collectively people feel would be scary or should be scared of. You shouldn't be. They're there to protect you. They may look fierce, but they're not, they're there. And I think of that video quite frequently when we talk about Mothman. Mothman didn't hurt anybody, but that imagery was more an omen that something was there or something was about to happen. No, it's not Don Yazzie, but he does have a great show on our network, and he would be somebody to definitely talk to. I know that he speaks about skinwalkers, but I know that he got backlash for speaking about it as well too, because parts of their culture they don't want discussed and feel that it shouldn't be discussed.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons that I tread very lightly in that area. I think that it's culturally sensitive, and so I don't want to ignore those accounts. But by the same token, you know, you want to be very sensitive of people's thoughts. I see a mention of the bunyip there. I did write about the bunyip. In fact, I have a chapter on Australian monsters. So the bunyip was kind of an interesting one. And what fascinates me about that is, although it's still scaring kids to this day, it's also gone kind of the cute and cuddly route. And yeah, absolutely, that is the bunyip origin story. Was told to Aboriginal children to keep out of the water, and shared with the first whites that went to Australia as well. And they took this story on board for their own. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, the bunyip is also like a cartoon character, and you can buy bunyip plushies, you know, your own cuddly bunyip monster for kids.
Mish is chiming in from Australia.
Mm-hmm. So, Mish, yeah, we have a whole chapter on Australian monsters in this. Yowie is in there also, the Australian Bigfoot. Australian river monsters are in there as well. Like, I feel Australia is one of those continents where there's so much to be spoken about in terms of its potential for those stories. But going back to the kind of changing of the seasons with monsters, the Tasmanian Devil, which I did not write about in this book and would like to get to in the future, starts out as this kind of scary story. And now, you know, you have a cartoon character, Taz, the Tasmanian Devil, that's funny. He's this figure of fun. So as we evolve and grow as a people and as a culture, monsters can kind of change form to keep pace with us. You know?
Or does it open our minds up more to be less fearful of them as well too, right?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, there may be an element of that as well. But this happens with our Hollywood monsters too. I mean, remember A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was, I want to say, 1987, Freddy Krueger. And, you know, you have a character here who is a child murderer and a child molester. And within fairly short order, he became so popular that he was on kids' pajamas, and you can buy plushy Freddy Kruegers for kids now, you know. It's just incredible how quickly that character changed and became a figure of fun from being a figure of fear. And we've seen the same thing happen with vampires too, haven't we? And werewolves and all kinds of things like that. It's cyclical.
For sure. And was it meant for fun or just for marketing to make money as well too? Denise Mitz, Sean Clenn, yes, thank you so very much for like Vulcan mind melding with me and knowing exactly where I was going, because I know that I had posted the video before, and you would have seen it on some of the social media posts that I've made about it. So Sean Clenn, he does a brilliant job talking about the different aspects of his belief system. And
I should look him up.
And culture, yes. He's been on a number of TV shows as well too. So that might be part of, or a good time to ask that question about eyewitnesses. Like, how do you discern, you know, what's credible and what's not, and how do you weigh those factors, or what factors do you weigh in when you are doing your research?
One of the key things that impresses me is when an eyewitness does not want any publicity. In fact, they ask for the opposite. You know, we live in an age where, unfortunately, there are people that are hoping for an appearance on, you know, the Discovery Channel or the Travel Channel or their 15 minutes of fame, and they'll you know, stretch a story, let's say, in order to achieve that. The ones that really impressed me, and I interviewed several for the Mothman book, were people that said, look, keep my name out of this. I don't want anyone to be able to identify me, but I had this encounter with a creature and I just have to know, am I alone? Should I be worried? Do I need to go see, you know, my psychiatrist? Those are the people that really impress me because they just want answers, not publicity. And speaks to credibility.
And there is a difference between compelling and reliable. Really, like somebody can tell a compelling story, but
True.
you know,
Yeah. You can read a compelling novel and not a word of it is true.
That's right.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. But I do think it speaks to the credibility when they, are actively shunning publicity and not trying to cash in on it.
Yeah.
Well, great question from Jason Cummins there.
Yeah, I'm just about to put that up for you. So Jason is asking any thoughts on Dyatlov Pass. Not sure if I spelled that right.
Yeah, it's Dyatlov, I believe, but that's okay. The Siberian incident, I believe, where the theories on that range from rogue werewolves and monsters, Jason, I've seen, to the idea that they were all overcome by a toxin, to hypothermia-induced psychosis. It's one that you could spend a week debating, and I am still not sure what happened at Dyatlov Pass. I think it's going to be one of those great mysteries that is forever discussed and debated and never solved. What do you think? Drop a note in the chat and let us know.
Yeah, exactly. And I like not knowing everything. I like not having the answer. I like just having the conversation about it and the what ifs, and then a new piece of information may be found. So it initiates a whole other conversation and we get to bring it in again.
Yeah, I mean, with your Scottish background, Carolyn, I'm sure you're familiar with Billy Connolly, the great Scots comedian.
Yeah. Yes.
And he does a piece where I saw him interviewed, and he mentioned something about the Loch Ness Monster. And he said, of course there's a Loch Ness Monster, because can you imagine how much more boring the world would be if we knew for sure that there wasn't? The uncertainty of it, the idea that there just might be one, adds a little bit of color and brightness to the world. And so I think we all kind of collectively give certain things a pass, the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and things like that. We all just kind of agree that, yeah, this could be a thing. And if it isn't, I don't know that I want to know for sure that it isn't.
That's how I feel too. Hillbilly Herb, Dyatlov Pass, alien space robot jellyfish.
Hey, it's a hypothesis, right? There are so many out there. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, because somebody, up here, Carrie, I appreciate that.
Vampire.
Oh, sorry, there was vampires, Bigfoots. So somebody was actually, there was another, do people interact in dreams with Bigfoot? So the recent video, for sure they do. There are people that do. And Lily Nova just posted a video. It wasn't necessarily during dream, but it was during meditation. Oh, Brian Baker, thank you so much for showing up. Love it. So Brian Baker was just recently on the show as well too. So he's saying, I'd like to book Richard on the page. Yeah, I remember hearing it, and it was up for sale in 2024. Was it ever sold?
Yeah, Brian, it was sold to some content creators. Amy of Amy's Crypt now owns the cage, I believe, and is working to turn it into a museum telling the story of the plight of those accused of witchcraft in Britain. So hats off to Amy for preserving that small corner of history.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, good to see you, Brian.
What role do misidentifications play, do you feel? Where do you think skeptics are absolutely right?
I think that we want to believe so badly, or at least certain of us, we want to believe so badly that skeptic is a word that gets a bad rap. I'm trying to phrase this well. I feel a true skeptic just takes an open-minded look at the evidence and says, these are some pretty wild claims. So what evidence is there? What do we have in terms of eyewitness testimony, photographs, sonar readings, if you're talking about something like the Loch Ness Monster, physical evidence, tries to kind of assess it all. Whereas there's a difference between skeptic and denier. And I think the terms are
That's
wrongly
right.
used interchangeably, you know? You can be skeptical of anything as long as you are truly open to assessing the evidence. When
That's
you're
right.
in denial, the problem is that what many people, especially some professional skeptics do, is they'll say, yeah, monsters can't exist, therefore they don't. And if you start from that point, you aren't making an honest intellectual query. You've already made a predetermined kind of judgment. And most of them just aren't willing to consider the possibility that anything here is genuine. So true skeptics I
That's
absolutely
right.
respect because they will consider the evidence and at least come to a reasoned, informed position from that. Yeah, but it's also dangerous to be openly credulous. You
That's right.
know, you have to strike a balance between the two and ask the hard questions. I mean, to me, one of the hardest questions is where are the physical bodies? You know, one of the reasons I'm so fascinated by the psychic aspects of the Bigfoot phenomenon is if this simply were a humanoid walking around out there in the woods, living in clans or tribes or families, whatever it may be, we would have a body by now. I truly think we would. I mean, the fact that we don't have one compelling Bigfoot corpse to analyze makes that case for me. If you look at a possible interdimensional component or some kind of paranormal aspect to it, um, it seems to me more likely an explanation for why we just don't have the physical remains to analyze.
I lean that way. That's how I lean. Interdimensional. That's how I lean as well too. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we have bones of dinosaurs, for goodness sake. So, yeah.
well, Tom Dongo's got some pretty interesting stories about, portals and things that he saw at Bradshaw Ranch,
He
and
does, and having been to Bradshaw Ranch myself, it is a very strange place. Um, and I feel like there are commonalities with Bradshaw Ranch and Skinwalker Ranch. Um, and I think that the more we dig, there are areas like that around the world, places where it just seems that high strangeness is abundant.
yeah, I agree. Uh, all over. I love that, they've taken, from Skinwalker Ranch, they've branched out to find those places that have the same sort of experiences as well. And it's all of it, again, from cryptids to alien to the paranormal. Like it's all connected and happening in those places, just with a little more intensity and frequency in some, right?
Yes, I believe that is the case.
Do you find though that more people, or is there the potential, the more people who are waking up and waking up maybe is the wrong term, but awakening to those concepts and ideas and tapping in, less people sleepwalking through that, that we will have more, like Ohio will have more sightings, we'll have more interactions?
I think yes, but it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, we have more people that are genuinely taking an interest in this and taking it seriously. But on the other hand, we have more snake oil salesmen that are trying to sell them
Oh
a bill
yeah,
of goods for likes, clicks and
yeah.
things of that nature. So we have to be cautious every bit as much as we have to be open-minded.
Um, well, it's discernment. People using discernment and being able to take things apart, right? Mish, you really make me laugh. So maybe Bigfoots don't corpse, um, especially with AI and the way that those videos that come out now, where
Well,
everybody's second guessing: is this real or is this
yeah.
not real?
But going back to Loch Ness, the surgeon's photograph, the classic picture. I'm sure everyone knows it, but just as a bit of a reminder, the one that looks like Nessie's head and neck coming out of the water, that was on the cover of so many books when I was a boy. It was probably the single Loch Ness photograph that fascinated me the most, and we believed it was genuine for years, not least because it was submitted by a decorated British Army surgeon. Was revealed to be a hoax, that it was a toy submarine and a sculpted neck. So sometimes even, the supposedly unimpeachable sources are fakes. And I feel that we live in a
Right.
time of misinformation, right? Where aliens could literally land on the White House lawn and you could show that in 4K high definition, and at least half the country wouldn't believe it because it's too impressive. It looks too good. We've
Yeah.
transitioned from a time when all of the photographs and videos were too blurry and grainy. Hey, I've got this great UFO video, and it's shaky cam and a light in the sky.
Yeah.
And now an alien battleship in full high def, and you can see every bolt and rivet, and it looks too good. So
Yeah.
with video evidence, we can't win.
I agree. And I think my first experience with that too, I do know that photo that you're talking about, but Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and the Cottingley Ferry.
Yeah, equally great example. And the great trap with Conan Doyle was he wanted to believe. And the irony that the father of Sherlock Holmes, the fictional detective that was all about evidence, 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 what does the evidence say, was fooled by two girls because he so desperately wanted to believe. And you get into Houdini and Conan Doyle and their feud over spiritualism. Houdini took it pained him, but he kind of outed Conan Doyle's wife as being a fraudulent medium, or at least in Houdini's view, and Conan Doyle never forgave him for it. They both wanted to believe, but on opposite sides of the fence.
I love talking about Houdini and spiritualism. Love talking about
that's covered in my next book in September. That's coming out, The United States of Ghosts. So we should do a return interview for that. I'd love to get to Contessa's question though, real quick.
Yes. So Contessa, and there's the pups.
I hear monsters.
They are monsters.
I hear
they
hodags.
are Bernese, so they are big. So Contessa Martins is asking, have any cryptids ever been caught?
There have been no cryptids ever caught, to my knowledge, that have been reliably proven to be something. I talk a little bit about chupacabras. I have a section on that in the book. And it seems like the majority of chupacabras, when they're caught, turn out to be something like a coyote with mange. There has been no cryptid identified of which I'm aware that has been laboratory tested and found to be genuinely anomalous.
Mish is saying, must be an interesting feeling fooling a lot of the people with chicory. I guess I'll ask the grubberman how that feels. There's that too.
We live in a time when manipulation happens on a grand scale, doesn't it?
Yes.
And it's not restricted to governments. We see it with big tech. We see it with content creators. I see it whenever I log onto social media, and a YouTuber is telling me about their night in the portal to Hell house, and it's a house that I've slept in soundly many times.
So that happens all the time. That happens all the time. So again, does it come back to even as a medium, I've gone to places where they say it's going to be, you're not going to sleep. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I choose to. And I sleep just fine. I'm not having that experience. So are we creating it as well too? Is it our intention? Is it the energy that we are putting out?
Or is it simply that some people are trying to get famous and make money by having us believe something that is grossly exaggerated? There are major, naming no names, but there are major network TV shows that have made a fortune on selling people a demonic narrative that does not stand up to the slightest scrutiny. I wrote an entire book, In Search of Demons, 80,000 words. And I am open to the concept of demons existing. I really am. But I do think if they are real, then you're probably not going to find someone one of them in a basement in Indiana. I'm sure they're out there fomenting trouble in many creative ways rather than waiting for a YouTuber to come in and terrify them.
Agree. Jason is asking, is the Tasmanian tiger considered a cryptid, or is it just a quote unquote normal creature?
Hi, Jason. I'm not very familiar with the Tasmanian tiger, so I'm going to do that rarest of things when it comes down to a so-called expert interview, and I'm going to say I don't have enough information to answer that intelligently.
And so do we get to have add that into another book? another chapter.
Maybe. I would love to do another monster book. Currently, I'm working on In Search of Bigfoot, which has been an absolute delight to do and has taken me to some very strange and out of the way places. So I might well end up, doing something like that. I'll make a note of it, Jason, and add it to my future hit list.
The Bigfoot Discovery Museum, is it still open? I thought
the one in Bailey,
Fulton, California.
Oh, I haven't been to Fulton. The Bigfoot Outpost in Bailey, Colorado, their museum is pretty superb. Sasquatch Outpost. I didn't get as far as Fulton yet, but again, that book is still ongoing. I'm actually heading east from Colorado next month to look into some Midwest claims of Bigfoot. So, yeah.
You really need to connect with Richie. So Richie Brolt, I'll send it. I will send it to you in an email, and
that'd be great.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing things that he's had happening.
Okay.
Out of oh yeah. Hi, Cindy Waghorn. Thank you so much for being here. So Mish is sharing again from that perspective. Australian Tasmanian tiger was real but wiped out from humans.
Thank you, Misha. Yeah, again, it's a gap in my knowledge, so I always love hearing about those because it gives me some new rabbit hole, or in this case, tiger hole, to go down in my free time.
Have you found common traits, like when you were doing research, like in the different culture backgrounds, or what areas, or even time of day, landscape, like were there commonalities to some of the stories?
Not so much that. In fact, the opposite. One thing that I found fascinating was I looked at werewolves, and the classic story of the werewolf under the light of the full moon. I found daytime werewolf sightings, which sounds incredibly odd, right? Because we've all grown up with this idea of the full moon comes out, thanks to Hollywood, and the wolf kind of comes out, but it absolutely blew me away. And I looked also into medical studies on lycanthropy and things of that nature and the effects of the full moon. And as a paramedic, we are all about evidence-based medicine, but there are two exceptions in which we all cave to superstition. One is that we never say quiet. We refer to it as the Q word. A good way to get hated in any EMS service is to say that it's quiet. We just don't do it. We believe it tempts fate. But the other one is the idea that we are busier and that we run kind of crazier calls during full moons. Like, you can talk to anyone in emergency medicine and we believe that. And yet studies have been done, and I cite them in the book, which shows that we are actually not any busier during a full moon at all. The only people who are busier tend to be the police, because a full moon is in fact a burglar's moon. It gives them better light to see by, to break into places. But there is this long-standing pervasive myth that the moon brings out, the wolf in us, the animal. And it just isn't true. It just isn't true. So that really was interesting to learn.
I'm just going to take a second to do our station ID and do a bit of a pause. I'm not sure if you're needing to pop out for a minute or two, but
yes, I will pop out too.
I will do our station ID while you do that. Fabulous. Alrighty, folks, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. You are listening to Spirit Switchboard, and I'm your host, Carrie Lynn Shelhorn, and you are listening to us live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. If you would like to find out more about the hosts and shows that UPRN has to offer, you can head to uprntalkradio.com. There you will find more information about the hosts, the shows. There are thousands of archives. There is something for everyone. It is not all high strangeness and paranormal. And thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Our guest today is Richard Estep, and we are talking about monsters, myths, legends, and real encounters. His book that just recently came out. It came out March 10th, or was released March 10th. So you can find that anywhere that you purchase your favorite books. I had a question, folks, for you guys in the chat. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Okay. So I know that I asked about like the monsters that you were connected with as a kid, and are you still connected with them now? So Sasquatch has always been something that I was interested in, even as a kid, and still am. Loch Ness Monster, for sure was one of the ones that I saw, and that photo that Richard was talking about earlier. Do you feel that there are monsters that are overrated? Do you feel like we focus on a certain monster more than others? Overrated, underrated? That's the question I just asked everybody in the chat. Is there an overrated monster, and is there an underrated monster? Is there one that we should spend more time focusing on?
I love it.
Maybe from two perspectives, like even from the book, is there one that you found, that we should spend a little more time investigating and researching?
I feel like the ones that you might actually, I'm a sucker for a good lake monster story or a good oceanic monster story. So Morgar, the Cornish lake monster, and sea monster kind of fascinates me. But I do love Loch Ness. And the reason why is that although it's massive, it is a controlled environment in that there's no way out. So I know efforts have been made to chart the loch. They've dredged the loch and they've gone across with lines of boats doing sonar studies and surveys, none of which have turned up anything conclusive. I would just absolutely love to see like Loch Ness given more time and attention.
I love that. And in Canada, we have the Ogopogo, the sightings in British Columbia, right?
Yeah.
So same thing.
Yeah.
Is it Okanagan Lake? So we have that. And I know that there's one in Ontario as well too, which is where I live. I'm outside of Toronto. And so I know that there's one here too. I forget what it's called, but very similar to the Ogopogo. And I would love more research about that as well too. And similar to Loch Ness, right? Like it's in some inland lake. It's not ocean, not salt water. How does that?
Yeah, the Cornish ones in Britain, the Morgar sightings, Falmouth Bay it's a bay, right? It leads into the ocean, so it makes sense, that you might see something there. But yeah, it's fascinating. There's a whole psychic component I write to about Loch Ness as well, where there was a psychic medium that attempted to conjure up lake monsters during a national experiment that was done a few decades ago. And that led to one of the most famous and controversial color photographs of what was supposedly Nessie. So, yeah, lake monsters are the one for me.
Interesting. Okay, so Stephanie, thank you so much for chiming in. Loch Ness, so people are agreeing, right? Heidi, you are so fabulous. All monsters matter. That is a very woke answer. Thank you so much. Love Bigfoot more now. That's awesome.
So Stephanie dumped Nessie in favor of Bigfoot. That's really, really sad for Nessie.
Poor Nessie. I paid Sasquatch little attention as a kid, but my curiosity is definitely tweaked on that now. Brian, I love this. Kelpies.
I like that choice. So sticking with the aquatic theme, Brian, I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Hillbilly Herb, fairies. I give the
Fae
way more.
Yeah. Go to Ireland and they would absolutely agree with you. I mean, the Irish take their, and I say this with complete respect, the Irish take their fae very seriously indeed.
Well, and we should.
It's not something that is to be crossed or made light of over there. Yeah.
Brian, thank you. Manipogo, Champ, Metro Maggie. See, I didn't know about Metro Maggie.
Lake Champlain, yeah.
Yeah. And Lake Superior. Lake Superior is its own anomaly in itself. So the Machu Picchu, the water panther. And somebody is asking, oh, Joanne Belisario, thank you so much, is asking where do mermaids fit into all of
Oh
this?
yeah, yeah. I investigated a mermaid case that was fascinating, Joanna. Again in Cornwall, England, on the coast. Cornwall is, if you don't know it, it's England's like most magical part, and they have a chair in this old church. I wrote about it in my former book, Dark Spirits. It's not in Monsters. I'd already done mermaids, and they have a chair known as the Mermaid's Chair in this church. I was able to go see it. You wouldn't dare sell it. It's hundreds of years old, but it's carved with a mermaid. And the story is that a mermaid came into the bay and was kind of sunning herself on a rock one day, and heard a young man singing in the church choir, who had such a beautiful voice that she was enraptured by this young man. And they became paramours. They became lovers. And they were last seen swimming out to the ocean together. He was never seen again. He swam off with this mermaid. And a lot of the stories out of legend, like you look at the ancient Greek myths, the sirens, and Odysseus, of course, having himself famously tied to the mast so he could hear the siren song. And they would beguile mariners, to crash onto the rocks. And it was a warning. Well, this is kind of the opposite. The Cornish version, the Cornish mermaid story, was the mermaid was beguiled by the voice of a normal human, of a man, a male, young male. And that kind of fascinated me, that it was a role reversal, but the mermaid's chair is still there to this day. And they still tell that story in Cornwall. It's hundreds of years old. And to walk into that church and then down to the bay, it does kind of make you wonder. So mermaids, mermen, merpeople, it's fascinating stories.
Sasha Graham was on a couple of weeks ago. She just has a new tarot deck that will be coming out in September, and it's Vampire's Tale. So it's focused on vampires. And
Really?
in her deck, she has a vampire mermaid, which I thought was rather fascinating, because at the time my granddaughter had just finished, doing this coloring book, and it was with mermaids, but every mermaid she turned into a vampire. So everyone, she drew little fang teeth on these mermaids, and at the same time I had Sasha Graham. So how often do those hybrid cryptids happen? Oh, look at the chair.
So that is the mermaid's chair. I'm sorry for the low tech version of showing it to you, but the cushion obviously is very new, but the carving is ancient, and that is the mermaid's chair in Cornwall. Yeah, from the Cornish coast.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. It is an artifact. You don't get to sit in it, of course. Nobody should. But the Cornish people are absolute believers in water monsters. That's at Zenor near St. Ives in Cornwall. So, yeah, very much mer people part of the culture there.
Hillbilly Herb, I'm so grateful that you're here and contributing to the conversation. The Lake Ontario monster.
Some great stuff here.
By the Seneca name. Thank you so much.
Is there a monster on the moon as well? I'm seeing from Miss Shelley. Here's what I've always wondered. If you believe in werewolves, obviously a werewolf, in the light of the full moon, what happens if you make one an astronaut and send it to the moon? If the moon is always full, is it a werewolf all the time then? If you send it to the dark side of the moon, is it still a werewolf? And then the full moon is just reflected sunlight. That's the other thing. That's why the vampire stories are kind of fascinating and a little nonsensical, because, vampires they burn to a crisp in sunlight, but moonlight is fine. And yet moonlight is simply reflected sunlight. That's all it is. It's the same photons. It's just not direct. So, you look at some of these legends and they don't make a ton of sense. And historically, I think we as a species have used monsters as a way to conveniently explain things that we don't understand. Vampirism, that's certainly the case. We didn't really understand tuberculosis for many years. And so prior to the 19th century, vampirism was an easy explanation for why some dead bodies were found having coughed up blood. We didn't understand the post-mortem process. It is a myth that the fingernails and hair grow after death. That is not true. The skin and tissue actually retracts and makes them look like they've grown. And so people still used to think oh, they're alive, they're growing, their hair is growing, their fingernails are growing. No, they're not. But vampires were a great explanation for those things that medical science did not understand at the time.
Thank you for sharing that. Contessa is saying, I grew up being told that mer people weren't very pretty and had sharp teeth. Only when I was older did I hear about the beautiful mermaids. I've always been
Yeah.
fascinated by the more,
Scary mermaids, kind of, mer
yeah,
people.
all of it.
Mhm.
More than the pretty. Like to me,
Well, yeah, and actually, you look at mythology, and that's far more common. The kind of mermaids that you get, the Disneyfication of it. I mean, and I'm not using that as a derogatory term necessarily, but you say mermaid, almost everybody today would think of Ariel, the mermaid from The Little Mermaid, right? Go back before that, and mer people in folklore could also be quite terrifying, something to stay away from. And again, I mentioned the legend of Odysseus and the sirens, and of course, then we get into lost tales of Atlantis and things like that.
what moves something from intriguing to persuasive for you? What kind of?
You mean like in terms of the likelihood of it being real?
Mhm.
When there is something more than an eyewitness account. So if you speak to any detective, they will tell you that the worst kind of evidence, the least reliable evidence, is eyewitness. Time after time, it has been proven that we do not see what we think we see, and we do not remember what we think we remember. And yet, juries
Yeah.
love eyewitness testimony. People have been sent to the electric chair time and time again on eyewitness testimony. So I'm looking for something beyond just the stories. As much as I'm in love with the stories, because at heart, I'm still that 5-year-old kid that grew up loving ghost and monster stories. But when we start
Yeah.
talking about something being a little bit more believable, there has to be something beyond an eyewitness account. Leave aside the fact that some people lie. We are too easily fooled. So there has to be multiple vectors in order for it to be more potential for me.
If we were doing a paranormal investigation, you would have various pieces of equipment, right? And hopefully, if you are catching evidence that it is, 3 photos in succession with different cameras and having those different types of equipment, all receiving pieces of something at the same time, like one
Mhm.
supporting the other. So if you
Yeah,
were looking at
multifactorial.
yeah, exactly. And so if you start looking at Sasquatch or cryptids or these folklore stories, what kind of equipment or what would you use or how would you approach it if you were investigating it?
Well, we went into the wilderness outside Bailey for one of the Bigfoot investigations, and one of the things I deployed was a REM pod. And I'm a big believer in shielding a REM pod from stray RF signals. But out there are no RF transmitters. There's just nothing. You can't even get a cell phone signal out there. So it was kind of fascinating to me that we had what seemed to be interactive REM pod activity going on in the wilds of the Colorado wilderness. So that was kind of fascinating to me. When I wrote the Mothman book, we attempted EVP sessions in the TNT area, the silos where the first
Oh, wow.
Mothman encounters took place. And I
Yeah.
would love to tell you that we got some results, but we did not. So, you throw, I think, multiple different techniques and tools from your equipment bag into the investigation. And like anything, if a tool works, keep using it. And if it doesn't, try something different.
Yes, be open-minded to try something different.
Yeah.
And not always the most expensive things either, because old school things are
You mentioned Sir Arthur Conan Doyle earlier, and Cottonley fairies aside, and his belief in spiritualism, I know was a point of contention, but he was a very insightful man. And you look at the first to use the term, ghost hunters, if you will. Sir Oliver Lodge, Sir William Crook, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. These were some great minds. And as they investigated claims of apparitions, of the living and the dead, haunted houses, things of that matter. They didn't have the gadgets. They didn't have K2 meters and tri-field meter. They had the Mark 1 eyeball. They had a pen and notepad, maybe a thermometer, and a few bits and pieces, like they would use talcum powder or flour to test whether phantom footsteps were in fact caused by a human foot. But the vast majority of what they did was mental. It was deduction. So I always tell people that are interested in doing any kind of field research, contrary to what you might have been told, you don't need to break the bank doing this. Your money is far better spent getting a base education on principles of investigation than it is on a $400 gadget that lights up necessarily when the wind changes direction. That's not to say equipment doesn't have its place, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying that I think part of this, and I blame television for it, part of what's considered investigation now is a bunch of people sitting in the dark watching a box waiting for it to light up.
Agreed. I agree. Heidi's
I had that same book, Belly. Oh, great question, Heidi.
So Heidi is asking, Richard, have you looked into the vampire, or have you been to the cemetery on Baseline and Public Road 111?
Yeah, the Lafayette, Colorado vampire. I wrote about this in Dark Spirits. This is the story of a man who everybody believed he was a vampire. What he was a miner. I mean, someone who worked in mines. He was foreign, I believe Romanian, but certainly from that part of Eastern Europe. So locals he had this reputation because he was so pale, from being underground all the time and got no sunlight. He was ostracized from his community because he got the reputation for being a vampire. And to this day, his grave is known as the vampire's grave. It's very, very sad. I don't think there was anything remotely vampiric about him at all.
I did not know this, and that's fascinating.
No, I wasn't familiar with that.
Yeah, Hillbilly Herb is sharing really interesting Mothman sightings in Hamilton, Ontario, before and during the plastics plant fire. It saved some folks' lives by making them late.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
That's very interesting. Right, and oh my gosh, I forget the name of. There's all kinds of old simple things, right? Things that you have in your pantry that you can take out to try using for that kind of investigation. My grandpa used to willow witch wells for people, so that was my first introduction to energies, feeling energies, and how we can use that for different things.
Very cool indeed. Yeah, old school definitely has its place. And I think I like the idea that we have a lower bar for entry to this. I think that somebody should not be prevented from, going out and trying some field research themselves because they don't have the money to do it. And there are no shortage of sellers, vendors that will try and, get a mortgage payment or 6 out of you and tell you this is what you need for your investigator's kit. No, you don't. $100 American or Canadian is plenty.
So what would you suggest then if somebody was new to starting?
I would suggest that you read widely. And despite having done television myself, I would steer clear of television, to tell you the truth. Basic equipment would be a good voice recorder. And if you can afford it, I'm a big believer in an analog tape recorder, which they do still make, and a digital voice recorder as well. And beyond that, go on out and investigate the claims, I have a bias towards books, obviously, because I write, but I mean, I've also done 7 different television series, I think. And it should not be forgotten. The purpose of TV is not to conduct a realistic investigation. It is to entertain. If you are into the paranormal, if you're passionate about it, the chances are those shows are not being made for you. I hate to say it. The shows are really being made for people that they want to get their fix and then they want to move on and do something else. those that are real enthusiasts, I think, that desire as much knowledge as possible should read widely, and with a critical mind as well. So critically evaluate what you're reading.
And if you're going to invest in that $400 piece of equipment, really understanding the how it works and why it works, what, like, really looking at
Yeah.
those parameters and understanding that.
Thank you.
That's so important. Jason
Oh, yeah.
is sharing, Richard, I just watched a bit of Paranormal Revenge yesterday. Great stuff.
We shot
For
that in
those that don't
Toronto.
know much about it.
Yeah, we shot it a couple of years ago in Toronto. And it was my role on that is man with opinion. I'm not a big fan of the term paranormal expert because I know it's, there are really no paranormal experts. But I really get to give my input into cases in which a haunting was allegedly triggered by the desire for revenge on the part of a spirit. We know that unfinished business is a classic motivation for a haunting, an intelligent haunting. And of course, revenge is arguably the ultimate unfinished business. So I very much enjoyed being a part of that show. And it's now airing. It aired in Canada 2 years ago, which is where we shot it. And it's now airing in the US.
I hardly watch any. It's probably not a very good confession.
No, I'm on it, and I'm on shows, and I hardly watch any of them, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, again, no disrespect to my friends in television. Erin and Tony were excellent on Paranormal Revenge, Brian, absolutely. I'm just a big fan of the fact that television is designed and packaged to tell a story a certain way. I mean, to a degree, it's scripted. And there is an inherent injection of drama and excitement, which doesn't necessarily exist in the real world. So when I write a book, I can tell you in a paragraph that an entire night passed without anything happening. You're not even going to know that on a paranormal TV show. You're just going to assume, based on what you see, that it was wall-to-wall screams and excitement and things of that nature. So
hours of nothing happening for the most part.
One of the crossovers with my profession as paramedic and the paranormal field is you spend 90% of the time bored waiting for the 10% that is heart pounding to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, that does not make for good television. You watch a TV series like The Pit, which is excellent, by the way. I don't know if you've seen it, a medical drama, but they compress about a year's worth of incidents into a 15-episode season. That's the way it works. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good drama.
Yeah. I was very fortunate that it was like through local cable, like it was through Rogers local cable. So it just was what it was. They followed me around. I didn't have to necessarily be an entertainment monkey. I didn't have to worry about those things. They just showed it for what it was, right? And I was very grateful for that experience. But I did see,
that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, it really, I agree. And so the way that social media has shifted and changed and all the different streaming platforms, you really don't need to be on that TV show anymore. People are becoming so well known and having those viral videos off of TikTok. People are getting more millions of views with cats doing silly things, than they are.
Yeah, agreed. But the unfortunate downside, we all know that social media short form video content is rotting our attention span.
Exactly.
And I also think if you're going to be successful, and I should say air quotes successful, a lot of the time there are some creators out there that are ethical and are doing this the right way, but the majority of them, it's a race to the bottom. Nothing boils my blood more than a thumbnail that looks like this. The fake scared face. And I'm not going to name names. It's so many people, but they're making it as deliberately like a horror movie as they can, and they forget that so many of these hauntings are based on the tragedies and lives of real human beings.
Who still have family living.
Right. Look at Amityville. You know, the real horror in Amityville was that a family was wiped out in cold blood while they slept of one of their own. There are 50-something Amityville movies out there right now. And it is just a race to the bottom in terms of trash, and it's all built on the graves of this innocent family. So, you know, I think we are setting ourselves up for failure in the social media space, because in order to get maximum views, you have to invent, exaggerate, and in many cases outright lie. Otherwise, the creator next door, your competition, that can do it scarier, you know. Remember the early days of paranormal television? There were no demons at all. And then it was suddenly discovered that demons sell. There are very few, right? Paranormal State, I think, was
Paranormal State. That was exactly where I was going to go to.
yeah, but there was a huge bias there, because it was essentially, you know, following the Warrens methodology. But you look at shows like Ghost Hunters or Most Haunted in the UK, they weren't running into demons every week. And then it suddenly became apparent that demons were scary and a ratings hit. And all of a sudden, almost every show was doing a demonic case of the week, you know, and
Yeah.
I think it cheapens what we actually do.
Agreed. Mish, I saw I think it was Mish, you put the, about Oak Island. Yeah, sounds like Oak Island, hours of nothing, I mean years. So, okay, and yes, Hillbilly Herb. I love Oak Island. I love it. That is one. Yeah, I love it. I love the hope of it. I love their camaraderie. I just, you know, whether they find something or not, but I love the history. So,
But that's the key, right? I think you hit the nail on the head, though. You get invested in them, not the finding.
Yes,
if you watch Oak Island
right.
for what they found, there's just no way,
Yeah.
right? But you get
That's
investigated. Right. Is it the Laguna brothers? Is it? I forget their names.
That's
but
right.
Yeah, I love their passion. I love what they're doing. The same is true with Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's the mystery, and it's always just tantalizingly one step ahead and out of sight. And we keep coming back, and that's absolutely okay. I've always
And they're
found that
emotionally invested.
You do.
They are, and then we become emotionally invested along with them.
Mm-hmm. And also, I think that the promise of that mystery is almost greater than you could ever deliver. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I feel like the fewer answers you get, the more we crave those answers. And so the
Yes.
more we keep coming back. And I think that's the paranormal in a nutshell as well. I mean,
Agreed.
the old joke is that, hey, we'll all find out if there's life after death one day, right?
That's right.
You know, so I know a number of skeptics that are like, just wait, you'll know one day, sooner or later. But we still crave the mystery. We want answers to that mystery. And I think shows like Oak Island and Skinwalker Ranch thrive on that.
That's right.
Mm.
Yes, Blind Frog Ranch too. It's got its
What is it
own
about ranches?
kind of, yeah. Wow. It's all the underground tunnels too.
Maybe.
There's the things we bury, right? The things that we bury, that come to the surface. Oh my gosh, you guys are all in this chat. You've got it blowing up so fast I can't keep up. Yes, Templars and Vikings, all of that stuff. Templars draws everyone in. Those stories. Oh, Mish, I live on acreage and see nothing in Australia. There was okay, we have to be mindful of our time here. So for someone that's brand new to all of this sort of topic, is, you know, which creature in the book would make the best gateway for a deeper dive for them, do you feel, in your opinion?
Well, it would be a literal deeper dive if you went with the Loch Ness Monster.
Yes.
But I think now is the time of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, right? That's the one that, like, still is. It's a talking point right now with what's going on in Ohio with the Patterson-Gimlin film, and it's also research that a lot of people can do, because many states have their Bigfoot or Sasquatch equivalent stories. So squatching is a thing that is pretty accessible to most people, as long as you go about it intelligently, you know, and you're going out into the woods and you take the appropriate precautions. I would go with that. Bigfoot Sasquatch.
Yeah, I love it. It has been a passion from the time that I was so young, you know, like
Mhm.
now I have my oldest son is 32 and he still talks about how much I have talked about Sasquatch from the time that he was little. I appreciate you know spending the evening with me tonight and sharing all of this with us.
Of course.
Jason is asking, do you think there will ever be a piece of equipment invented that will be able to prove 100% that ghosts exist?
I don't know, Jason, because I'm not 100% convinced that ghosts do exist, which for someone who spent 30 years looking for them might sound kind of strange and maybe even hypocritical. But um, I think that we need to do a better job first of defining what ghosts actually are. We use ghost as an umbrella term or haunting as
Mhm.
an umbrella term, I think, for what probably is several different facets of the phenomenon, you know? I think phantasms of the living are going to be different than intelligent haunts, are going to be different than residual phenomena, and so on and so forth. But um, is there going to be one piece of equipment that proves all that? No, I don't think so. I think if
I
anything does, equipment might contribute to it, but I think it's going to be some of the studies into consciousness. I think without
yes.
better understanding human consciousness, we
Yeah.
can't begin to get a handle on the ghost subject. Yeah.
And then if you yeah, even talking about quantum Bigfoot, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is those
Yeah.
conversations
Yeah,
and
exactly. If you
potential.
haven't had Joshua Cutchin on the show, I would recommend it.
I have.
Oh, there you go.
I enjoy yeah, I enjoy those conversations with him for
Mm.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Oh, thanks so much, Grant. Grant is part of the Ontario Paranormal Society here
Hey,
in
Grant.
Ontario. He's been on the show a few times as well too. Open-minded skeptic.
Good. I'm a big fan of open-minded skeptics. I try to be one.
Me too. Me too. Even at you know that some of the events that I do, a lot of times the ladies will drag their partners along, and I
Yeah, you see the
ask, are
body
you
language, right?
oh yeah, exactly. So I asked them if they were voluntold or if they volunteered to be a part, and that's all I ask is for people to be to be open-minded,
Yeah.
and for me too. Like I think that you can see the difference when somebody is seeking the evidence. I like the evidential pieces of information that come in. I like when it's very evidential and when we're talking about places and investigations and stuff like that, unless
Mhm.
you're consistently like Belgrove Plantation, we were talking about our mutual friend Kim Sage.
Mhm.
Unless you have the access to that same place and can recreate those
Yeah.
you know experiments over and over again, I don't think that we can ever 100% say for sure about those places what it is. Um, I don't know. Maybe we won't even know when we pass, depending on what our belief system is, too, right?
Yeah. If
Those,
there's nothing, you wouldn't know that there was nothing because you wouldn't be there to know that there was nothing.
that's right. And I've seen those people who believe that they were going to get stuck be those people who are like those revenge paranormal ghosts. That they believe they were going to get stuck. They did get stuck, and the havoc that they created. So there's so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, Grant was on haunted hospitals too.
Yeah, that must have been season 3, right, Grant? We shot that in the midst of COVID, and I was very busy paramedicing through that whole year, so the whole year's kind of a blur. But I remember I shot my portion of that in a hotel suite in Denver, and they had the director like remoting in from Toronto, I think it was. So very, very strange experience indeed. Yeah, I wish we could have filmed together. That would have been good.
When this book, so Monsters, Myths, Legends, Real Encounters, folks, it was March 10th. It was released, correct?
Yep, came out March 10th.
Yeah,
Available now.
yeah, March 10th. Available now, folks. And you said you've written 3 since. You wrote it last year, and you've written
Yeah,
3
I
books
did. So
since
you're
then.
always a year behind with traditional publishing. So I turned in
Right.
my manuscript for a book that's out in September, The United States of Ghosts, which is essentially the pitch for that, and it's the same publisher, is if I could give a history class to some very bored either children or students, doesn't matter what their age is. If I could give an American history class using only ghosts and hauntings as my curriculum, this is that book.
Oh my gosh,
So
that's really fun.
yeah. So we go from Lexington, Concord, 1775, 1776, all the way through the 21st century by way of the Queen Mary sailing her way through World War II and things of that nature. So it's available for pre-order now. My memoir, my paramedic memoir, is out in May. That is called Help Is on the Way. Only one chapter on ghosts there because I couldn't quite leave ghosts out of even a medical book. And I'm just finishing a book about a haunted funeral home in Kansas, about sleeper mortuary in Kansas called Wakening the Sleeper. That should be out
Oh,
in April, hopefully.
I think, do they have a social media page? I think I know. Yeah, I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, Sleeper Mortuary. It's an interesting location for
Yeah, I
sure.
started following them because they do lives from their
They
basement.
do. Yeah, and their cameras are accessible too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
super
their cameras are
fascinating.
accessible.
Yeah, I love that. That was something too with Skinwalker Ranch. So my mom who is in her early 70s, is fascinated with all of it. So I signed her up so that she can be a part of like their boots on the ground. So she can log in the middle of the night when she's not sleeping and watch the security cameras over the mesa and log in when she sees something
cool.
weird. It's super cool. My mom loves it.
I was out there last year. I never got further than the gate, but I was out there for Phenomenon where I was speaking there, and I'm back this year. But out at the gate, a wolf. The only time in my life a wolf approached my pickup truck, came right up to my pickup truck, and wandered on by. It was the strangest thing. Yeah, just seemed completely disinterested and tame, and then just disappeared into the night. I have it on video.
Wild. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here and all that you do to contribute to stimulating these conversations to go a little deeper and think outside of the box and have different perspectives. I appreciate all of that. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. All the questions and comments, you are all appreciated.
Great questions. Very insightful questions. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so very much. Thank you to the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 in the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And thank you, Michelle DeRoche, if you are still listening. I appreciate you problem solving with me prior to the show, and to Joe Montaldo, our network owner. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you here next Friday at 6:10. Good night, everyone.
Goodbye.